think we are live. There we go. All right, what's up, everybody? We're here, Cerebral Spice Rack, for another episode, and we're doing our episode today on mainstream media. Obviously, just how they are very deceitful, duplicitous, and always are trying to influence the public and everybody around them. At least to their narratives, and it's something that we really want to talk about today because we have to get the true information out there because it's so easy to see how they are, lying to us and being how deceitful they're being. So, anyways, I'm gonna share this out. I'm gonna let Jason introduce himself really quick.
Hey, I'm Jason. I've been on here a few times before, but you're probably not going to see me today. So yeah,
Well, at least
I'm an opinion writer. I was in a daily, no, Real Clear Politics a few days ago. I'm in town hall fairly regularly. So yeah, that's me. But the media is something that's been preoccupying me for a while, and it's incredible the kind of monopoly that they've got. So I'm looking forward to talking about
hmm
it today.
Yeah, it's gonna be. Hopefully, we can get this episode done with about an hour here. But yeah, we got some really good links to share with you guys, and get right into it. So the first one I wanted to share with you guys was actually one from Fox News, just to show you guys that I don't know. I don't want to come off as a biased person all against the liberal media, although they are. I think they do have more power right now, but obviously conservative media isn't immune to these sort of things. They do kind of, they have their own narratives that they want to push, and sometimes those narratives are, dangerous. And this is kind of a little thing we're gonna go over here. But the first link is Tucker Carlson hosts woman with live chicken to mock CDC guidelines against chicken kissing. I'm gonna keep loving my birds, and that's the title of it. Anyways, the CDC put out this statement basically I think a couple weeks ago saying to don't kiss or snuggle backyard poultry and don't eat or drink around them, and this can spread salmonella germs to your mouth and make you sick. And I obviously think this is true. Being a microbiologist myself, you shouldn't be kissing animals that are outside, and live outside. There's germs and bacteria and fungus on them that you don't want anywhere around, your ingestion. And it was just weird that Tucker had this girl on that was completely, on the other side of this. I'm not sure if she was saying this about chickens that she grew up inside and only had inside, but I doubt it. But anyway, she said that I'm not a huge fan of it, talking about the CDC guidelines, because I've been handling chickens since I was about 4 years old, and I've been kissing them, snuggling them, shoving my face in them, and I'm fine. People around me are fine,
Wow.
and I don't see a problem with it. And I don't understand why Tucker brought this person on. Obviously, like if you raise a chicken inside, and wash them, regularly like you would with any other pet, I think it's fine, to be snuggling with them. But for not wild chickens, but chickens that are outside, in coops that are supposed to, that you use as farm animals, as to get eggs out of, those they're dirty animals, and you shouldn't be bringing them up to your face to kiss them. You're obviously going to get germs, like the CDC said. Um,
Why the hell does anyone want to kiss a chicken anyway? I mean, of all
I
the animals to cuddle with, you'd think the ones with fur and not with feathers would be the more appealing ones, but
yeah,
I don't.
I don't know. Yeah, and then it just shows you that even Tucker Carlson, conservative media hosts, will bring on and kind of push these weird narratives. And I would think that the only reason Tucker did this is to kind of put a jab at the CDC, but I don't think this is a jab that he thought it was going to be. I think it just makes him look kind of dumb in my view, and they're just trying to push a sense of you shouldn't trust the CDC on anything, no matter what it is. And I don't think that's a good view to take. I think there's a lot of things that the CDC gets right, but obviously they do try to push narratives as well. With obviously with all the COVID stuff that we're gonna get into a little bit later, but this is just to show you guys that conservative media isn't immune to the sort of the lies and misinformation that people are spreading. And this is kind of a dangerous thing that he shouldn't have brought on his show. But
Yeah. Well, Tucker is interesting. I mean, he's spoken truth. I mean, he's been a solo voice of truth on quite a lot. He's
mm,
spoken out against lockdowns. He's been really incredible on a lot of that stuff. But at the
mm,
same time, he does go in interesting directions. And I hope that I don't end up in a position where 5 years from now I'm having to pretend that I never liked Tucker. So I hope
mm,
he could go either way right now. And I hope he goes in a good way.
Same with me. He's very populist. I think that's the problem with Tucker, that he's just going to support whatever the common working man wants. And I think, there's a lot of good things to push in that sort of sense, but there are also a lot of dumb things like this where I don't know why he needs to be pushing things like this. Like, I don't know what else he said about it. I didn't see the full clip, but I imagine he didn't, have my opinion on this. As long as they're clean, don't think there's a problem with it, but don't be kissing outside chickens. That's not good. You're going to spread lots of germs.
Well, people are afraid of the CDC governing the minutia of life, and I guess that kind of taps into it.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, and that's why I assume that's why he had this woman on, just to. I feel like there's so much better ways to come at going against the CDC with which we're going to have a couple of links about them today, or not specifically the CDC, but Fauci, who heads the CDC and other infectious disease centers, at the federal government. But anyways, we're gonna get into mostly the liberal and the leftist narratives that they're trying to push here. And I mean, the first article I got for you is just to show you how wrong and dumb they are. Okay, and I'm just gonna preface this with, I was never a supporter of Trump. I never voted for him, but at the same time, you got to realize that the media was very not on his side, and they weren't giving him any sort of help through his presidency, especially obviously the left wing media, which was most media, CNN, MSNBC, most of the news sites, like Vox. But anyways, we'll get into this article here. The news media isn't biased against Trump; it's biased for him, which I just think it's an insane kind of headline to have. But it's by Jonathan Chait. He's a biased person, but he himself should understand, having a bias, that even the liberal media was biased against these people. And I'll just show you what he wrote about this. So he states, and he gives this a little bit of credence here. So it is also true that mainstream news coverage in general has depicted Trump in a brutally harsh light, which is true. But then he goes on to say he is held by necessity to a more forgiving standard than any modern president. And that, to me, is just insane. When we have a clear example right now of them treating Biden like a goddamn child. Like, they're asking Biden what his favorite fucking ice cream flavor is. Like, the gall on these people to say that they're unbiased. And they throw all the shit at Trump, which, I think presidents should get a lot of shit thrown at them by reporters trying to find the truth. But at the same time, he says this kind of stuff, this kind of shit. He says that he has a more forgiving standard than any modern president. We have such a clear-cut case of how that's not true with Biden. Biden has been asked the most low-balling questions of any president I've ever seen. And, I think some of it has to do to the fact that he's not all there mentally, You can't be asking these hard questions to someone that has dementia, which it's not proven that he has dementia or any kind of mental, but you can see it. You can see it in his speeches. If you watch his speeches from today compared to the speeches that he gave 10 years ago, it's a different man. He has a clear mental decline.
I mean, he always stuttered. He always had the hilarious gaffe proneness. Like, it was never to this degree. Mm-mm. There's something accelerating.
Yeah.
But far be it from me. The worse it gets, the better chance of Republicans have in 2024. So I'm not complaining in the slightest.
Mm.
But yeah, with the media, there's such a lack of self-awareness. And I saw someone on Twitter posted to the media, "You guys worked so hard this year. You put an extension cord all the way into your closet." Like, it used to be fucking Walter Cronkite going into the middle of Vietnam and reporting right to the war zone. Now these people, they're like me. I write opinion pieces.
Yeah.
And they write opinion pieces. They just sit on the computer and write opinions all day, which is a noble calling, but don't act like you're a hero. Don't call yourself the fourth estate. Be aware of who you are and what role you're playing.
Yeah, because they claim to be unbiased. I think CNN has the most guilt in this charge. They come out saying they're asking questions of the both sides, but they're not. They're obviously fully biased against one side, and they're trying to make it seem like they're unbiased. And it's so clear to me, like this kind of stuff, because this this Intelligencer, it's a part of the New York Magazine, which obviously has a New York bias, and the Intelligencer is their section on up to date news stories and whatnot. And they publish something like this that's not in an opinion piece. Like it's insane to me that they can even think like this. It's so clear to me like how biased they are and how like you were saying, how blind they are to their own bias. But anyways, we'll get that out of the way. I think it's such a clear cut case of how they think of themselves and how they're trying to spread this bullshit that they think is truth. Well, I think they know what they're spreading, and it's just sickening, basically. But anyways, we're gonna go into some more sickening stuff about how the media's been really with warm kid gloves on with Hamas, an alleged, not just an alleged, but a truthful terrorist organization, not just by our State Department, but by state departments of countries around the world, especially in NATO and United Nations. Even though United Nations is having some questionable opinions on this as well. But anyways, and we won't watch this whole video, but ABC, they brought on a Hamas spokesperson. And you'll just see just how she introduced him. It's a very warm light. It's not. There's no sort of antagonism here. There's no sort of trying to get towards the truth, even though you're bringing on somebody that's an avowed terrorist. Just watch how she introduced him.
International relations for Hamas. Dr. Naim, appreciate your time. Thank you so much for talking with us tonight. Health officials in Gaza.
Anyways, we're not going to go into the whole video, but just and it continues like this. She doesn't ask him any hard questions. Thank you for your time. We appreciate you being here. This is not how they would be even treating somebody from our own country on the conservative side of things.
Yeah, remember the Cotton op-ed? They had to take down. There was that little revolt at the New York Times. Tom Cotton, I think it was Tom Cotton, right? He wrote that op-ed calling for Trump to send in the troops against the mostly peaceful protests last summer. Back when these people loved insurrections. And so then the New York Times, these millennial kids at the New York Times editorial board basically hijacked the website, took the piece down. They could have Putin wrote in the New York Times opinion section. The leader of the Taliban wrote in the New York Times opinion section. A Republican senator couldn't do it. And this is it's so obvious, it's so infuriating. And I go on Twitter every day. I try not to, but you're grinding your teeth with some of this stuff.
It's just clear these people they have a clear bias and they think they're being unbiased, like I was saying even in the last one. And it's just search for the truth. Like if you're a reporter, that's what your job is, to search for the truth. And these people don't understand their own jobs. And being warm to these people, we appreciate your time. Thank you for coming on. At least you can say that, but the tone she had, the tone was very warm, very very greeting. You can just tell where these people lie, and they claim to be unbiased. It's so frustrating to people that actually pay attention. Like me and Jason, me and Jason watch the news and listen to the news every day, and we see this stuff happening every day. And most people only catch a glimpse of what how the mainstream media treats these people, and it's so infuriating to me that they would treat. I'll go back to my earlier point that they treat a leader of a terrorist organization, a spokesperson for them, with warmth and generosity, while they would spit metaphorically on people who are just conservative in our, just people who think differently, a little bit differently than them, that want we're all trying to search for the best solutions here to our own country, but they don't give any sort of this kind of warmth to anybody on the conservative side or anything like that, even libertarians. It's completely opposite how they treat us. It's just.
Well, I do notice the dislike bar for the Hamas video on ABC is very long. And that's the disconnect. People don't want this. There's such a disconnect between the members of the media who've gone to this silo of elite colleges and the people. This is not a reaction. The reaction of most people to seeing the Hamas spokesperson on ABC is not a good one. But the message doesn't get through to them. They still think they're going about it the right way. And I'm not opposed to having the guy on either, but challenge him.
Exactly.
Him. if you have him on, then don't you dare cancel Tom Cotton's op-ed.
Exactly. But anyways, we'll go to another quick link on this. This is had to do with how AP were in the same building in Hamas and were actively denying it. So basically, this is the title of the story. A former Associated Press editor suggested that Hamas did have offices in the agency's Gaza City building, which Israel destroyed over the weekend. So basically, Israel struck this target that they had legit knowledge on. They shared the knowledge with the Biden administration on this. We can't see that intel. It's all classified. But anyways, they struck this building with a few missiles. They, what Israel does, they will actively tell people to get out of the area, to save as many innocent lives as possible, so they can destroy their, what's the word for it? Their structure, their means to get, this propaganda out, basically, and their means of operation. So basically, they said the Israeli Defense Forces said that the building also contained military intelligence assets for Hamas, including intel for attacks against Israel. And the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, on Sunday called the building a perfectly legitimate target, citing the same reason. And the AP has pushed back on Israel's claims, saying in Saturday's statement that it had no indication Hamas was in the building or active in the building, and that it asked the Israeli government for evidence. And obviously that evidence is classified, but they sent it to the Biden administration. They didn't come out and say that was that they had bad intel. So obviously there was some good intel there that there were terrorists in the building. It's like, how does AP, I think they were in this building for a decade before it was actually blown up. How did they not know that Hamas was in the same building? How can they claim that? Like, you have to be the most, as the Associated Press, they're reporters. They should know what's going on around them. And either it's a full lack of competence. They had no idea, and these people are just dumb, which I don't believe. I think they actually knew and were working with Hamas to put out propaganda in their own state about this bullcrap. But that's just an opinion. But anyways, that's the only two things it could come to. Either they're incompetent or they were actually working with Hamas. There's no other things. Either they're dumb or they're evil.
Or both. But
yeah.
But Hamas is very good at the informational warfare. I think when I went on Birthright, one of the soldiers on our trip was telling us about a friend of his who was in Gaza or maybe it was the West Bank, and got somehow provoked into a compromising situation. And they're good at getting the right, they'll throw rocks at the soldiers, then provoke a reaction which is probably perfectly warranted, but they stage the photo so that it looks like some Israeli soldier shooting a child or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, there's Photoshop in there too. I remember at UCSB every year BDS would have the apartheid wall, and there was this really ridiculous, clearly Photoshopped picture of an Israeli soldier kneeling down, pointing a gun at a child. And of course they got that on camera, and it's totally real, not faked at all. But Hamas is very good with using the media.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all they've got is the emotional game. So they play the hell out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all propaganda, because the reports are clear, with how Hamas treats people and how Israel treats the conflict, and how this all started was, a couple weeks ago, Hamas just started firing randomly into Israel. They didn't care who they hit, but when Israel strikes back, they strike direct targets, where they know military members are going to be. And there's proof of this on YouTube. You can go on YouTube and look up videos of the Israeli officials calling Hamas people to tell them to get everybody out of the buildings before they even strike them. And
yeah,
they don't do that for everything. I think they did a few strikes where they actually they reversed the idea on them. And it was just a big military conflict that they were trying to mislead Hamas into doing something that they weren't. But anyways, most of the attacks that Israel does, they let Hamas know before they even do them. So it's this is just a complete, there's no moral equivalency here. These people on Hamas, they're terrorists. They want them all dead. And there's I'd say this a million times. You can go up on YouTube and search up Hamas members saying they want all of Israel dead. They want any Jew they see dead. Like, I was watching this one video the other day of a Hamas leader saying that he would give money and props to anybody in Gaza who brought him a Jewish head. And it's just fucking insane. These are not the same statements that are coming out of the Israelis. It's just, I don't, I'm not an expert on this issue, but it's pretty easy to see who's trying to be good here and who they're just trying to kill people for their own personal gain. Like, it's
terrible. There's a children's TV show in the Palestinian territories with a Mickey Mouse character that tells the kids to kill Jews. I think Jon Stewart's joke was he looks like Mickey Mouse and talks like Walt Disney, but yeah, they start the brainwashing very early on, and I don't know. The thing, they kill every Israeli they can. Israel does not kill every Palestinian they can. So these guys like John Oliver who bring up the death toll, by the same standard, Germany was the victim in World War II because more Germans were killed than British. If you're going to go by pure death toll, death tolls don't tell the full story.
No.
The fact is that Hamas is killing every Israeli they can, which happens, fortunately, to not be many because of the Iron Dome. Israel is not even close to killing every Palestinian they can. So that's the difference. The fact that one side is stronger and that it's limiting its casualties to such a degree that it is probably the best argument in its favor.
Yeah, and we're not going to get we don't have anything else on Hamas or the whole Israel conflict, but the main reason I wanted to bring this up is just to show you guys that the AP is, the Associated Press, is they're either lying or they're incompetent, and they're just like, it's a clear-cut case here, and I feel like, this is hearsay, but one of their own former members says that he had information that he says a conversation with a friend who is intimately familiar with military decision making right now suggests that there were indeed Hamas offices there. So they knew, and this is just, obviously just hearsay, but it just goes to show you either the Associated Press, where they were lying, or they're incompetent. That's just the point I wanted to make with it.
Every building you're in, you don't know everyone else who's working in there. So you're AP, you're fourth floor, then some terrorists come in and they say, we're here for the bombing, and secretary looks at them and says, oh, you want Hamas, fifth floor. That's totally how it works in office buildings.
Yeah.
No, I'm sure they had no idea.
It's just, it's like, what, I don't know, like, a lot of the conservative pundits, they had said, or they assumed, or not assumed, but thought and made the hypothetical claim that Hamas was, trying to push out their propaganda through the AP that was in the building, which, isn't a hard leap to take with these people, with how just evil Hamas is, in my opinion. Yeah.
Well, the current crop of journalists is people who went to college when I did. So I graduated 2016. The social justice really took off. The current round of wokeism really took off in 2013. So, and that started, Jonathan Haidt writes about this, it started kind of because the generation that didn't get to play outside finally went to college. The Zoomers, if you date the Zoomers from 95. Also because the generation, the first wave of political correctness was the early 90s. That was the immediate aftermath of Kimberly Crenshaw's intersectionality stuff. Right now, those people are becoming professors. College students back then are now professors. So the problem is my generation, our generation. Which year did you graduate again?
2018. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're a couple years behind me, but people who went to college my age and a few years older than me are now working for the New York Times. And so they were raised in the same milieu that we saw at college. And this notion, all this stuff, anti-white, anti-male, anti-Jewish, the whole progressive coalition, that's very deep in their hearts, and they go into journalism certain that their job is to do activism to make the world a better place, which is something they've never reflected on. And so they think that making the world a better place means pushing. It's very unreflective. But they're very convinced of their righteousness.
Yeah. It's like, they're the reporters, they're the journalists, they're the professors, they're they're in every aspect of life now. Even the radio shows I listen to, you got these people pushing their social justice politics on people that are just trying to listen to music, man. Like I was listening to this one the other week, and this girl was pushing all of the Black Lives Matter stuff. It's not that I disagree with everything that Black Lives Matter has to say, but it's like, god damn, just keep it out of like every single aspect of life. But
it's everywhere, and they complain because J.K. Rowling had one opinion they don't like. Try being a conservative. Yep. I was at the gym yesterday. I was listening to Dropkick Murphys, and a new one came on I hadn't heard before, and there was a lyric, "Oh, Trump said it was just the flu." Like, come on. And these people, like, being right wing, being moderate, is a regular day after day having the creators that you admire espouse views that you find hateful. But then J.K. Rowling has the wrong idea. Orson Scott Card has the wrong idea, and it drives them crazy.
Yeah, it's all about the orthodoxy. If you're not with the orthodoxy, and you're a heretic, and it just takes one wrong opinion to do that. And people need to start standing up for themselves against this crazy ideology. And we're gonna do a whole separate episode on the woke ideology, critical theory, and all that, because that can fill up a whole episode. But anyways, we'll move on to the Chris Cuomo stuff here. And you guys, if you guys remember, Chris Cuomo's brother Andrew Cuomo had a big sexual allegation scandal against him that's still going on. But basically what happened here is, title of the thing is, Chris Cuomo says he obviously cannot cover sexual harassment allegations against his brother. And he states here, you're straight with me, talking to the audience, I'll be straight with you. Cuomo tells the audience, obviously I'm aware of what's going on with my brother, and obviously I cannot cover it because he is my brother. And it just doesn't make any sense, because the first thing that came to me when I read that, it's like, you're bringing your brother on to talk all the praise of him, to make jokes with him. Like the one segment where he was making jokes about how big his nostrils were on live television, like with a big, what's it called, Q-tip, like, it's just like, if you're not going to talk about your brother, then don't talk about him at all. Like, just don't just talk about him when it's good for him, obviously. Like, one thing I wanted to bring up with this, if I had family members that were doing shitty things, I would want to get the truth on that, no matter what. Like, that's my job as a reporter. It doesn't matter if I'm related to them or not. I want to find the truth. And this guy has a prime time show on one of the biggest news networks in America, and he's telling you right here, he cannot cover it because he is my brother. That just shows you he wants to lie. And we'll get to the real, what's the word? Forgetting all my words today. But the smoking gun in all of this, where he said, and it's the same kind of thing, Jason, so I'll give you a chance to talk in a second. But this next one is titled, Chris Cuomo took part in strategy calls advising his brother, the New York governor, on how to respond to sexual harassment allegations. And it's basically all that matters here is the first paragraph of this article. CNN anchor Chris Cuomo advised his brother, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, and senior members of the governor's staff on how to respond to sexual harassment allegations made earlier this year by women who had worked with the governor, according to 4 people familiar with the discussions. And it's like, so not only was he not covering it because he said it was his brother, he was actively advising his brother and his staff on how to respond to this stuff in the media, which is just like, he's telling his brother, like, how to lie, basically, and how to get around this stuff. To me, it's just like, and this is proved. Like, there were almost, I think, 4 people that came out that were familiar with the conversations that spoke on this, and it's so clear, like, to see how he treats everybody that's not his family. It's like, it's so indicative of how these people think. They're elitist, and they only want themselves and their family to benefit from this fucking web of lies they're spinning. It's fucking insane. They're insane.
Well, it's a second generation political family, and that must be such a weird dynamic. I mean, I think Mario Cuomo was a 4-term governor of New York. I guess they don't have term limits there, but he was in there for a while, and so then he raises his sons to power. And I can't imagine what that must be like, your dad from a young age is trying to shape you to be a political dynasty. So what does that do to family love what does it do to these two brothers? I don't know, but I don't think it's much good.
Mm-mm.
But clearly there is a familial bond if the one is helping the other, and I didn't even see this. I should have seen it, and I'm somewhat impressed the Washington Post reported on it.
Same. This is actually
Like,
everywhere. Yeah.
yeah, they've got a drop of integrity, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
My only real interest in Cuomo was that I think he deserves due process, and I think he's a bad guy. I think he's quite likely a sexual harasser. I'd say 99%, but some of the allegations, I wrote a piece about this. Some of the allegations are a little unfair. Like there was this woman saying that he looked into her eyes repeatedly during a press conference, and then he shook her hand and said, "Hello, I'm Andrew Cuomo," and so that was her sexual harassment claim. And her perception about it was probably correct. He probably was being a bit of a creep, but we still shouldn't have a standard in which men can be railroaded simply by somebody getting a bad feeling about them. So that's really my only interest in the Cuomo story, but I am impressed with how long he's stayed in power. Him and Governor Northam, blackface Northam. It's easy to wait out controversy when you're a governor. Like they pushed out Al Franken, and he deserved. I can't stand Al Franken. That guy is such a smug bastard. He deserved everything he got, but it's hard to push out a governor.
Yeah.
So yeah, Cuomo's going to stay in, and if he positions himself as the only rational option, he might even win a term.
Yeah, but it's like, the main thing I wanted to bring up with this is just how deceitful and how duplicitous these media elitists think they are. It's like you take a job, in a prime time slot in one of the biggest news providers in the country. Like news, they're forgetting the definition of news is to bring the truth to people, and that's what we're trying to do here. But they're obviously trying to work against that, and with Chris Cuomo right here, with covering up and trying to advise what his brother should do about it. And obviously he's in the media, so he knows how to best deal with how he should respond to other media people asking him questions about this. So it's just it just shows you the mindset of these people. They think we're all stupid, and they think they can actively mislead us, and we'll just all believe it. We'll just eat it up. And the sad thing is, I think a lot of people will, because they're not paying attention to all of this. So it's good that we're at least talking about it. We're getting the information out there, but it just shows you how fucking deceitful these people are. And it's just amazing how much they get away with. And Chris Cuomo is still an anchor on CNN after all of this. And I think he got a little bit of discipline at the network, but if I was the head of a news network, I would have thrown somebody like this off for actively lying. Like, I can take, somebody saying that they won't report on their family members because they can't be objective. But the fact that he was going behind everybody and telling his brother how to deal with these people, it just shows you what these people think of us. They think we're stupid, but we're not.
Well,
at least
individually we're not. Collectively we are. It was a saying: you can't make a man by standing a sheep on his hind legs, but you can make a crowd of men that way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, they are good at what they do. Individually, we're not stupid. Collectively, we are susceptible to these types of tactics.
Yeah, it's just really sad. But anyways, I hope this story goes to show you how liable or how much they think they can get away with. It's good, like you said, it's good that the Washington Post actually reported on this. I think actually a lot of left-wing sources reported on this because I don't think they had a choice. I think the story was so big that they didn't have a choice in not reporting on it, because not reporting on it, they would have shown their own, blatant bias, which, is clear if you look into it, but they can hide behind a veil of objectivity by posting stuff like this. Which I'm not saying it's bad to post stuff like this. Obviously you had to, but at the same time, if you just look into it a little bit, you'll see what these news organizations actually think of, the lowest class in society.
They'll publish it when it gets to the point where it's embarrassing for them not to.
Exactly.
So they had to do it here, but if there wasn't the degree of pressure on them, it never would have happened.
Yeah. Exactly. And we're going to switch it up a little bit. We're going to talk about the protests a little bit, and how the media was trying to push, that the cops were the main problem in all this. And I agree somewhat with, the media's and the left's position on this, that, cops do need a lot of reform and police do need a lot of reform and checks and balances on what they do, because I think they do a lot of corrupt things. But I think it goes right in line with all the corrupt things the media does. But anyways, the main thing I wanted to say out of this one was the quote here. It's actually a quote that I somewhat agree with. Creating a truly independent police oversight board is something this community has been asking for decades. Hardesty said, this has always been the number one thing, because what the community knows is that as long as police, which is kind of a weird way to say it. It's just said how law enforcement.
Police.
Yeah, I
Buffalo,
should have said
Buffalo.
Yeah.
Buffalo.
Right. There will never be accountability in the system. And I agree with that. But at the same time, they're trying to push all these policies that they think is going to actually help the cities and the people that they're governing. Well, let me show you. Let me show you just what happened in Portland over the past year. So they're implementing all these policies. They think it's going to help, which I actually agree with some of the policies, but I think they're doing it in completely the wrong way. And the media is pushing it as, as this is what needs to be done. This is what's going to save people. And we'll just look right here. 55 homicides in Portland in 2020, the most in 26 years. Involved victims from 8 months old to 71. Wow. And the article, I
don't even want to think too hard about the first one of those.
Yeah, I read through this article. It made me cry. It was just sickening. But there's a lot of things that can be done about stuff like this. But sometimes they're just really unlucky circumstances that happen. But obviously, this isn't just due to unlucky circumstances. This is due to policy that's being pushed. But anyways, the article states, 7 fatal shootings in December pushed Portland's homicides to 55 in 2020, marking the most killings in the city in 26 years. The last time Portland recorded as many was in 1994, when there were also 55 homicides, according to police. And it ends saying, at least the beginning of the article, the rest of the article is just kind of describing each of the 55 victims, which is, it's good that these people are actually getting their names out there, but it's so sad to read. But anyways, they say, Portland is among many big U.S. cities experiencing a significant increase in gun violence and homicides. Police here attribute the jump to isolation caused by the pandemic, staffing shortages partly caused by shifting officers to respond to mass racial justice protests, dozens of retirements, and the absence of the gun violence reduction team, disbanded to address criticism that is disproportionately focused on black people. And this is what the leftist media and the left is pushing for. They're pushing for all of this, and this is the results you get. So deaths were up 55. That's an increase of, if you actually go look at the numbers. Somebody broke this down. I think Tim Pool broke this down. I couldn't find this exact source, but the exact number is Portland's homicides were up 766%. Like, murders were up 766% just in Portland. And you can go look to other cities where the violent crime rates are spiking too. I think some of it has to do with COVID and the lockdowns and stuff, which can also be attributed to the media, as you will get to. But it's also due to all these policies that are being pushed by the leftists now that think they're going to be doing good. But no, it's actually resulting in less people being able to call the police. There's obviously less police officers that can respond to these things. So, I think that's what we like. This is besides the point of this of the main podcast. But I think police are there to stop violent crime. Unless you're gonna have a gun on you, you need to be able to call an unbiased mediator to come down and help you with a violent interaction that you're having, or something that could potentially turn violent. And all of these people, I don't know how many of them, because it just describes to you in this article how they died. But you don't know how many of them called the police and weren't given a response, or maybe the response time was maybe it took hours for the police to actually respond there. And this is the active, deliberate effects of these people in the left and the leftist media, what they're pushing for to police, to change police in the country. And it's resulting in violent crime rates and murders just skyrocketing. It's sick what they're doing, and they will continue to claim that they're doing good and this is working as the violent crime rates spike. It's insane, and it's sad, and it's just, I don't know. I don't know. Like, it's so clear to me when you have actual statistical data of things going bad, and they still will claim to keep pushing on their bullshit agenda and their bullshit narratives. Even though I do think some of those things need to be done, I think there needs to be more police accountability. But the way they're doing it is directly leading to more violence in these cities. It's sickening. It really is sickening.
Well, it's funny. It's also funny. They disbanded the gun violence reduction team. So are these people horseshoeing around to be libertarian now? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this incoherent narrative. Oh, and by the way, it does say in the article most of the victims of homicide were men. So any feminists listening, please take note of that next time you want to talk about how this whole thing is against black and brown women or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Most were men. And yeah, I mean, that's the irony, is they'll cheer for the police dragging someone refuses to wear a mask in a store. They will cheer for the police dragging them out, beating the shit out of them or whatever. Fortunately, that it doesn't usually come to that, but they'll oppose the police in the one thing that they should be doing, which is stopping violent crime, the one legitimate function of the government. But they'll support them enforcing this matrix of a million little intricate rules which govern everyday life.
And you can see as most of these victims are people of color or minorities. I'm really going to try to stop using their racist terminology, because I think people of color is the same thing as saying colored people, and that's a racist term that racist whites made back in the 50s, or probably even before that. But anyways, that's besides the point. Minorities are being hit hardest because when you take down police, you take them away from low income neighborhoods, which are majoritively have minorities in them. Sorry, it's kind of a weird way to say that, but
minority.
Yeah, majority are minorities in these affected communities, and these policies that they're pushing are directly or indirectly hurting minorities the most. And and they claim that that's their whole thing they're pushing about these things, about police reform and stuff. They claim it's going to help black and brown people live in this state, in this country, and it's actively not. The communities being hurt the most are the ones that have the most minorities in them. So their policies are hurting the people they claim to help the most, and it's just like it's so sad, because I know these people have good intentions. Maybe not most of them, or maybe not some of them, but their policies that they're pushing are actively hurting the people that they claim to help, and it's really sad.
Yeah.
We're scrolling down, the people that were killed, and I'd say probably half of these people in Portland were people of minorities.
Yeah, it looks like it.
And it's like I don't think the minority population in Portland is even that big. I think they're disproportionately being targeted.
Portland's one of the whitest cities in the country, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I'd say probably half of these people that were killed were minorities. Black and brown people that the policies claim to help. It's just, it's like what conservatives say. They only care about when a white police officer kills someone, a minority. They don't care when they actually kill each other. And it's just, like, no, you should care about everybody that this affects. Like, the mainline thing that people should be worried about is how many people are dying, and these policies are actively making more minorities die. And no matter how much you say you want to help them, you're not. You're actively not. And it's just, this is what we're going to continue to get if we keep following their flawed policy on this. Like I said, there's some things we need to take out of Black Lives Matter, like police reform and making sure that police are held accountable when they commit crimes. But
yeah.
But the things they're pushing that are making cops quit, in huge numbers is just. It's leading to all this violence. It's really sad. I don't know how much more I can say about it,
There's
but that it's sad. But
there's a lot of evil in this world, and you can stop very little of it. And
hmm
I keep having to tell myself that there's do what little you can, but
hmm
the evil of the world could overwhelm any one individual.
yeah, it really could. And that's why we need to get the information out there so that more people know about it. And I don't know, I'm just really happy that we're doing this podcast to be able to
Yeah.
bring information to at least a few people.
Yeah, hopefully we're doing some small bit of good.
hmm Yeah. Oh, and then actually, I just wanted to show you a direct example of how the police treat people in Portland now. So basically, you got this. I'd say he probably was agitating going out here, but watch this. Watch, he's just standing there, and we have somebody coming up to him trying, being an antagonistic force, and we got the person in the wheelchair actively pushing them, and now he's starting to back up. He's retreating from his location. And we'll just go to where the cops finally come, and watch what happens here. So he keeps backing up. Of course, he has a weapon, but these guys also have weapons, and they're making him back up. He's retreating, and watch what these cops do. They get out of the car. They tell him to drop the bat, even though he's probably just trying to defend himself. And then instead of arresting the people that are antagonizing him, they arrest him. It's just it's fucking insane, because this guy was, as you guys saw in the whole video, he was retreating, and you guys can watch the whole thing. I wasn't going to play the whole thing, but he didn't do anything. He didn't assault any of them. He was the one that was being antagonized upon, and the police arrest him. Like, it just makes no sense. And these people are arresting the wrong people.
Yeah.
Like, it's so wrong. Like, this is what you're getting out of policing. You're arresting people that are just trying to defend themselves, retreating, and you'll let people that actively attack and antagonize people that are retreating go, and let them be free, and let them continue to do their bullshit. God, I tell people this around me all the time, but if I was in Portland right now, if I lived there, I wouldn't last very long, because I'd be out on the streets like he was. Not with a bat, obviously. I'd have defensive capabilities on me, but I don't think I'd last very long at all with these people. I'd either be killed or maimed by them, like Andy No was, or I'd be in jail, because like Tim Pool says, it's easier for the police to arrest the one person that is retreating and causing people to be mad. Well, not causing them, but obviously they're getting mad over him being there. It's easier to arrest one than arrest the fucking mob going after him. And it's infuriating.
Not all cops have shown great courage over the past year. Many have, not all have. And I think some of them just went after the easy target, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just, there are multiple videos that Andy No puts out. Like, yeah, this is actually an Andy No video where he has, I don't think he can actually go out on the ground anymore because they'd fucking kill him, which is just, it's crazy to think that these people are all, they're tolerant. They're the ones fighting for the right side of history when they fucking maimed an Asian reporter just trying to just trying to get out the truth on this crap.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing that they let this reporter or whoever's getting the video here live, without fucking attacking him, because that's what they usually do to people that are trying to gather video and information on what's actually going on. They usually attack the people who are videoing what's transpiring.
Yeah,
and it's really sad. It's just go ahead. Sorry.
They'll use the video camera as on their side as act of intimidation too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they'll come by protests, start filming, which is their right. I support filming in public, but they'll use this as a doxing mechanism. Then if you film them, they'll go totally crazy.
Yeah, exactly. It's just double standard, and it goes back to what most of them probably believe, that there's no truth besides power. How does the saying go? There's no truth besides power. I think that's basically what it says, but it doesn't matter what's right. If you hold the power in the society like they do right now, then it doesn't matter what's actually true. Like, they will just use the power for whatever they need it to.
Mm.
It's just sick. But yeah, anyways, there are a lot more videos like this of shit going on in Portland that is it's just insane, and this isn't gonna stay in Portland. This is actively
Oh yeah.
spreading to every city across the country, and even smaller cities like my city, had stuff like this. When I went out to protest, and I talk about this in the first episode. I had people calling me, shut up, like racist white boy. Like it was the most racism I had experienced is middle school, truthfully, and you just see the mindset of these people. Even if when you're on their side, like fighting for them, they don't want you talking because they know who you are. They don't want people looking for the truth. They want power, and that's it. They want power to use it as a sledgehammer against anybody that would oppose them.
Yeah.
And the media is completely on their side. The media doesn't pick up stories like this. The media doesn't show stories like this. They just show all of course they show the cop beating citizens and whatnot, which is also bad, but they don't show you the other side of what Antifa and these other groups do, and it's sickening.
Well, they'll very quickly pivot to opposing violent protests on the one day that Republicans did it.
Yo. They're such hypocrites. They're such fucking
Yeah.
hypocrites. Well, and then that just brings up a memory of mine, how they went into the Oklahoma state capitol, and the mainstream media didn't say a goddamn word about that. I think it was only a few right-wing media outlets that were actually reporting on that. But they literally did the same thing that was done at the D.C. Capitol, but they were just leftists, so they got away with it. It was completely okay. The FBI's not looking for those people. The FBI's not raiding their homes. The FBI's not taking work away from them. Like,
When was that one? The Oklahoma one?
Oklahoma, I'm not sure. It was after the DC ones. I think it was in February. Or
Wow.
March. Yeah.
I do remember I saw something about Michigan, or it was Wisconsin, when Scott Walker was trying to break the public sector unions. They went in the Capitol and
Yeah.
threw it away.
Yeah, that
And
was
nothing came of
that,
it.
that was a while ago too. I think that was way before any of this all the protests started last year. But yeah, it's like
Yeah, it was
they
like 2011.
yeah, it's like they can do it, but the moment that the right wing or somebody that doesn't agree with them do it, then they will use all of the power that they have against them. They drop all of their what's it called? Beliefs and principles in the matter of attacking the government that's doing wrong to you, and as long as it's on their side, they'll excuse it. But if it's against them, they will use every leveraging tool in their arsenal to go after you and to go after individuals that did that.
Yeah.
It's just so clear to see when you actually look into it and research it. There's a clear bias and a clear what's it called? A clear attack on one side of the country. Like if you do not toe the orthodoxy of the modern left, then you will be singled out. And it kind of makes me frightful having this show, because we're obviously not on their side. It's just any day here when we're going to get taken down, or if our show gets big, which it probably won't because they constantly shadow ban us and throttle our fucking reach. But
Here's the thing. If you don't speak out, they're going to get you anyway.
Exactly.
And there was that New York Times article gleefully celebrating how a girl who used a certain word was, fake rapping at the age of 15.
Oh,
She
yeah.
got her learner's permit, and she said, "I can drive," and then a certain other word
Mm-hmm.
which makes window shatter, and not in racist intent.
Yeah.
Not trying to use a slur, just trying to be a rapper, as much of a rapper as a 15-year-old white girl can be.
Mm-hmm.
And then this guy takes a clip of that, holds onto it strategically for 3 years. The moment she posts the typical "Justice for George Floyd" tweet, he releases it, gets her college admission rescinded. So
Mhm.
New York Times writes an article about that. And so if they can do that to nobody, then you might as well walk right into the line of fire.
Exactly.
Either you storm the beaches or the Nazis come to you.
Yep.
Like, honestly, the more firmly you stand up, the more the ammunition will fall on either side of you, I think. Like,
Mm-hmm.
dare them to take you down, and that's when they cower a bit. So
Mhm.
you gotta. It's terrifying, and it could happen to me. We've all made
Mhm.
mistakes. It could happen to me. It could happen to you. They demand a standard of perfection they would
Mhm.
never meet.
Exactly.
But but we've got to stand up anyway.
Yeah, you can't grovel to their orthodoxy because, like you're saying, they'll come for you anyways. You know, you must toe the line 100%, or they will destroy you. And I think, you know, agree with them where they're right, but fucking push up against all this bullshit, because who will? Who is going to do this? You know, and if you're not going to do it, or, you know, just speaking in general terms here, you know, then who will? Who's going to push out up against all this? And then once it finally gets to you, nobody's going to be there to speak out. So you can't be a coward on this.
Yep.
If there's something that you see as wrong that they're doing, then speak out, like, because they will come to you eventually, even if
First
you
they
think
came
they're
for
on
the
their side.
Jews. First they came for the Jews, and oh, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
they get outraged at Marjorie Taylor Greene for making Holocaust comparisons. I'm a Jew. In my humble opinion, I think it's perfectly warranted, because the Nazis didn't start big. That's the thing. In fact, this last year has been a larger single leap. I mean, at least it took Hitler like 7 years from 1933 to 1940. Like, there have been
Mm-hmm.
so many large leaps in this past year that stuff that would have been unprecedented. Yeah, we're not any different from the Germans. That's the thing. Not even, not whatever ethnicity you might be. Human nature, our tendency, our ability to commit such atrocities is universal.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the Holocaust comparisons are perfectly in line.
Mm-hmm.
And when this mob stuff starts in, you know, as a Jew, and to see a lot of the Jewish personalities in media do this, I think they need to go back and revisit the Dreyfus trial, because if you're Jewish and you're on the side of the mob and you're carrying a pitchfork, you have not learned anything from history.
Mm-hmm.
So, and don't you dare attack Marjorie Taylor Greene over what she said if you're the one doing that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Like, I had something to say, but it's past. Anyways, I think we're gonna switch over to the COVID stuff now, because it's just very clear to see how insane the media is when it comes to stuff like this, like COVID specifically. The first one I want to share with you guys is from the Daily Caller. It's titled, "Rachel Maddow says she needs to rewire her brain so she won't view unmasked people as selfish threats." And what she said specifically was, so she says, "I feel like I'm going to have to rewire myself so that when I see somebody out in the world who's not wearing a mask, I don't instantly think you are a threat," the MSNBC host said. "Or you are selfish, or you're a COVID denier, and you definitely haven't been vaccinated." And she continues to say, "I mean, we're going to have to rewire the way we look at each other." And I just want to say, if you ever looked at somebody differently for wearing a mask, then you're just as insane as these people. And I don't blame you as much as them, because they pushed this bullshit on all of us. They pushed it, and they knew what they were doing. They knew it was going to divide us. They made us all hate each other over this stupid fucking thing, a mask. Like, I'm a microbiologist myself. I have a BS in microbiology, and I understand that masks do help. But the way they pushed it, the way they divided everybody on this, is so fucking infuriating. And it's fucking. I don't know if this is. I think this is her true statement, but she's fucking insane for this kind of statement. I never viewed anybody out there that was wearing a mask or not wearing a mask as a threat to me or a COVID denier. Like, they were just fucking people, dude. We've lived for thousands of years not wearing masks. Like, and the fact that they're trying to push this Eastern bullshit philosophy on us is not just scary, but it's so fucking infuriating. Like,
and the neurological research on de-individuation is very clear. When you can't see somebody's face, or when your own face is hidden, that leads to antisocial behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And I just saw an article about how incidents on airlines have gone way up. You know, fights between flight attendants
Mm-hmm.
and passengers. Some of them over masks, but many of them not. But even then, the masks are directly impacting it. So
Mm-hmm.
here's the thing: when you drive, you don't drive the way that you would walk down the aisle in a grocery store. Like, you would never push around someone with your shopping cart and give them the finger, because you're seeing them as a human being. Cars de-individuate. You see other cars, you don't see other drivers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what masks do. I mean, Emmanuel Levinas, the philosopher, he talks about how the face is the center of personhood.
Mm-hmm.
The face, maybe the hair, because you have more control over the hair than any other part of your body. That's why the military takes it away.
Mm-hmm.
But the face is really where personhood, individualism, individual expression is found. And when you cover people up, it's a deep assault, and it goes beyond government control. Let's say the government forced us to wear an ankle bracelet. I mean, or like a type of shoe or something, something that covered some other part of the body. That would still be an attack on individual liberty, but it wouldn't go quite as much to the heart of human dignity as the masking stuff does. So I'll say this: the lives that may have been saved by mask mandates, which I'm not sold on at all. The lives that may have been saved may be a cost that we pay 10 times over or 100 times over if we normalize de-individuation. Because that strikes much deeper. If COVID is the topsoil, that's the bedrock.
Yep. Yep. And the reason I said Eastern philosophy in my statement is because this obviously comes from the East, the Asian philosophy, or not Asia, I'd say China, because China is, they're totalitarians over there. They try to dehumanize people as much as they can. I mean, look at one of our last episodes that we did on what China is doing to their own people, the Uyghur Muslims, and with the whole child policy they have over there. Like, every policy they have is to de-individualize someone and to take away their own merit as a person. It's all about the collective. It's about the group. What's best for the group. It's not about what's best for the individual, which is where we split. But anyways, that's why I say Eastern philosophy, because that's where this masking bullshit is coming from. And
I wrote something else about that in Real Clear Politics, and how there's conservatives, even Tucker Carlson said a couple of things in this direction. There are conservatives who are praising the Chinese model. They admire the national unity. You see these riots, and you see low culture, TikTok, decadence, all this stuff, and you're a conservative, and you look at that, you compare it to like the Cathedral of Notre Dame, and you say that there's something wrong with American society, and then you look at China and you see that they're a unified culture, or seemingly unified. And so there's conservatives who look at that and they think that there's something to envy there. And I said in my piece, yes, Americans can sink to lower depths than members of a collectivist society. We can also rise to greater heights. And a lot of the achievements of Western civilization, there's nothing matched by that in Chinese history. And they had great achievements, but there's Western civilization, individualism, for all its flaws, allows people to rise to greater heights and sink to greater depths. And since the people who rise to greater heights can lift us up more than the losers can drag us down, we all benefit.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's what gets to the heart of it. And it's scary that our media was pushing all of this Eastern collectivist philosophy on all of us. With under the disguise of it being a health thing. Because
And that's what the Nazis did too. They started with public health, and that expanded to seeing Jews as contaminated. But they started with public cleanliness projects, delousing, killing off rats, and that extended to the human being in a way that you now see being done to anti-maskers, to people who don't want to get the vaccine. They're seen as a contaminant threat. And you can see the line, the Zyklon B gas that Hitler originally used to kill pests was being used in the gas chambers. So,
Jesus.
Except you wouldn't expect the left, I mean, whether the Nazis were far right or whether they were a combination of the worst of both is debatable, but you wouldn't expect these leftists who think they're on the side of the peace and love hippies to be adopting such a way of thinking. And it's quite hilarious. I mean, not hilarious in a good way. On a vastly cosmic scale, there's an irony to it.
Yeah, just a quick thing on that. I think the hippie kind of left is dead. I think the live and let live, that ideology is gone from their lexicon, or not lexicon, but their system of beliefs. They don't think that you should live and let live. They think they need to control you for your best interest.
Well, these people, they fought rebellions over trivialities. The 1968 France protest happened because a couple of male students wanted to go in the female dorms at night. That's literally the cause of the events of May 1968 in France. And then they're going to fight for libertinism, and then their intellectual successors closed down society,
Mm-hmm.
and you complained about lockdowns, they fought rebellions over less.
Yep.
And I mean, the 60s, there was a very, I mean, there's not, the 60s are not what they're made out to be. It was a lot of dark radicalism, but there was something admirable about the free spiritedness.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you'd think the rock musicians would be, who claimed to be against the system. The only one who rebelled, well, it was Van Morrison and Eric Clapton. They made some anti-lockdown songs. But these people who claim themselves to be edgy and countercultural are reciting a party line quite pathetically.
Yeah, the party line, the elitist media's line, like yeah, it's the joke nowadays. You know, the edgy punk people, they're on the side of all these corporate fucking media chills. You know, they're pushing their ideology, and I think it's they don't understand that they are. You know, they think they're being edgy with all of these things, but they not paying attention to what's actually going on, and they're actively helping all these corporate media fucking elitists push their fucking ideology. It's just, if they would just have an ounce of sense about what's going on, an ounce of awareness of what's going on, that they would actually, be against it, or at least against some of it, if they actually understood what was going on. But obviously, it's too hard to read an article these days. We're too obsessed with our phones and what's going on in our own personal lives to actually see what's going on in the broad nature of society. And it's just, people need to wake up. And that's not to say being woke, because woke is the complete opposite. You're reading all of the wrong stuff if you're woke, but you need to be. Go ahead.
They use the metaphor for a reason,
and
that's because it's a good metaphor.
It is. It is, and it's sad that they have that metaphor. When they're zoning in on a very minuscule part of society and what's going on. Not saying that it's completely wrong. There might be an ounce of truth in what they believe, all this woke bullshit, all the critical race theory, but they believe that wholeheartedly without looking at the whole grand scheme of things. History, politics, philosophy, they don't invest their time in any of it. And they're just spewing all this propaganda based on corporate on corporate ideology, because the corporations know the more this ideology gets out, the more homogenized we are, and the more likely we are to buy their shit. That's all it's about right now. Is it's a corporate scheme for money, but it's really it's a short-term scheme, because soon they're going to be toppled by the same people that they are using to help them. So it's short-sighted on their end. It's sad they can't see through that they're only getting short-term profits, but maybe they do see that. Maybe they're getting the short-term profits and are just all going to dip out before shit actually gets bad,
A lot of these people who are now executives in the corporations have also been to college, so there's that. Been to college recently, I mean.
Yeah. Anyways, I think we spent a good amount of time on that one. I don't think this one will be too long, but it just shows you a little bit of how the media looked at this whole COVID thing. So, anyways, the Crying News Network, they're saying CNN, strikes again. CNN host Alison Camerata chokes up on live TV over CDC news that Americans can finally ditch the masks. And I don't understand the people that thought they had to wear masks everywhere. They were just completely, they bought into this corporate ideology of Eastern philosophy that you needed to wear a mask everywhere. I mean, a story came out just like a week ago where this guy, he was wearing a mask in literally every situation, even during like sexual intercourse with his wife, and his wife is getting depressed about it. And that doesn't necessarily go along with our whole narrative we're trying to push right now with the media lying, but it just goes to show you how fucking how deep their lies can infect the lives of normal people. This guy is just probably a normal guy. He was a little bit of a hypochondriac before, I think a germaphobe, but after all this shit that the media pushed out and how these people react like this made him fucking crazy. But anyway, so Almas Camerata, she says, I found myself welling up when Dr. Walensky was talking about the CDC director saying that we can take off our masks after no evidence saying you could. people like me, people who've actually looked at the evidence and the peer-reviewed studies, we knew about this all along. Yeah, maybe you should wear a mask in very close quarters and whatnot, but it's not going to be doing much for you. She goes on, you and I talked every morning, talking to the other reporter there, with Sanjay Gupta. You know, I talked every morning during the past year about how many more Americans were going to die. What's going to happen? Were we going to make it to the vaccine? Were we all going to survive? That, like, they were just pushing fear. They were peddling fear on everybody, and they, like, yeah, you could definitely see it here in California. People were scared out of their fucking minds. People driving around alone in their cars with masks on. There is no scientific basis to do that, like, at all. Like, there's no reason to. Even outside, even when you're outside, like, around people, like, there's no evidence that you should be wearing a mask because there's wind. There's no pressurized room you're in. You know. Not pressurized, you know, there is some sort of pressure that goes on in normal living quarters and whatnot that facilitates wearing of a mask being helpful. But when you're outside, in the open air, and you see these people jogging by themselves wearing masks, you can see the fear that the fucking media put in these people's hearts, and it's fucking sad, like, But
we suffered a collective trauma in March of 2020. It was like 9/11, except spread out over several days. So there wasn't a where were you moment, but there's several where were you moments. It was a national collective trauma, and we're still thinking in those terms, despite the fact that this is not what we were told it was. We were told 3.4% death rate. We heard rumors of 5 or 10% coming out of Wuhan in Italy. So the current outcome, less than 1%, primarily the vulnerable, would have been a best case scenario to us. We would not have panicked if we'd known the true death rates, but our brains are still oriented for collective PTSD. We're still keyed up about this to the degree that we have abandoned all notions of cost benefit.
Yeah, I think I was reading one study to where most people thought that COVID had a death rate of anywhere from 5 to 10%, like just insane death rates. Like, that would be fucking insane. You'd have people dying all around you. You know, think about that. 1 out of 10, 1 out of 20 people dead around you from COVID. Personally, I'm not going to, you know, this is just an anecdote, but personally, I don't know anybody that died of COVID. I don't even know anybody's relatives that died of COVID. Like, but that's just an anecdote. You know, if this was actually in the rate of 5 to 10%, we'd have people dying around us fucking like there was in the Spanish flu outbreak in the 1920s that we actually talked about on an earlier episode. And it's just, they scared these people so much, and they think this is such a crazy fucking illness when you actually looked at the data and saw that the data showed an average death rate of around 0.5%, and if most people actually knew that 0.5% was the average death rate, you know, around the world, not just America, it was lower here. They wouldn't have the fear that was instilled in them from media, you know, because all they saw was how many people were dying. They weren't seeing death rates. And all of these fucking leftists, they say, oh, well, 1%, you know, 0.5%, that's still a lot of people. Yeah, but based on the percentage statistically wise, like, you have the same, and we went over this in a previous episode, you have the same rate of death getting in a car every day, getting in an accident.
Yeah.
You have a point, and I've been in 3 accidents. I should know this.
I had a pretty bad one a few years ago, and it was, I've had a couple other experiences. I'm not really living on the edge or anything, but I've thought the matter over very carefully, and you have to be willing to accept death in your daily life.
Yeah.
Not to embrace death, but to accept it.
Yeah, it's just it's a occurrence that it might happen, and I think people are so divorced from the idea of death. You know, like, they don't understand how much it really used to happen. Like, just 100 years ago, fucking there would be like the rates of babies that were dying is fucking insane. You know, the rates of children dying, the rates of old people dying. Like, we are so coddled in this day and age to think that we're so, like, immune from death. No, it's a normal occurrence, and getting in a car every day and driving around is one of the most dangerous things you can do, even though it's not that dangerous. It's about as dangerous as COVID. And that was the thing that made me so, like, the comedic element of this whole thing. You saw people driving around with masks alone in their cars with masks on while they're still driving a fucking car. Like, you're putting yourself more at risk from driving that car than you are from fucking COVID. Like, it's just amazing. Like, and the people, but that's it. The media dupes people and lies to them to make them think that the risk is so much more than what it actually is. You know, like,
oh, the Fourth Estate. What will we do without them? The glorious Fourth Estate. They're most directly responsible for this panic, I think. I mean, Democrat politicians loved it, China loved it, but this is primarily, I'd say, the media's fault that we are where we are now.
Yeah, and I can't say if these were real tears. I feel like they're crocodile tears, but because if this woman actually knew the actual rates, being a reporter on live TV, I wouldn't cry. I mean, yeah, there was a lot of people that died of COVID. Even if one of my family members would have died, I still wouldn't cry about it on national television. It'd be, you know, it'd be a somber moment, but not something to cry about, because this is directly emotional manipulation of the viewership. The audience sees this and they're like, "Oh my god, it was an actual serious thing," you know? It's manipulation. It's clear manipulation.
I don't know if half of these people even know what truth is anymore. I mean, they've been acting so much their whole lives. I mean, if you're an anchor, your entire public persona has been crafted over the course of several years, and I don't even know if they're lying or telling the truth, or if there is any difference.
Yeah, or they might actually believe all of this shit they're spewing and think it's actual truth, you know, believe the lies they're spinning themselves, and maybe the hosts themselves aren't aware of it, but the people above them, I think, definitely are. They know what they're doing. And I think they're using everybody. They're using the public. They're using the hosts that don't understand what's going on, all to their advantage. And I think it's working out tremendously for them, as we've seen over the past year. But anyways, we're going to get into Fauci. So Fauci just makes me so mad, because as a scientist, there are certain things that are facts, and there are certain things that aren't facts. And if you know it's a certain thing, then you shouldn't say it is wrong, like, and be flip-flopping on things. Like, I watched Tim Pool a lot, and his main thing about this was that Fauci just watches the mainstream media and puppets whatever they say from 2 weeks ago. You know, like, anyways, the title of this article, Dr. Fauci flip-flops again. Oh my god, all these ads. Top infectious disease expert says outdoor COVID transmission is low, and updated mask guidelines due to be released by the CD will exercise common sense. And he says, I mean, if you're a vaccinated person wearing a mask outdoors, I mean, obviously the risk is minuscule. This after fucking the fact that he said not just a month ago that even if you're vaccinated, you should still be wearing a mask to decrease any sort of fucking passages. Like, what?
I mean, yeah, that was what Rand Paul was pushing him on, and then he pushed back with everyone on Twitter. Oh, Rand Paul's such an idiot. Yeah, well, Fauci just conceded the point. Man, who gave this smug bastard? I don't know whether... I tried to give Fauci a chance, you know. The media was clearly trying to drive a wedge between him and Trump, and there's the glorious media again. But I tried to give the guy a chance. The best explanation is that he started off basically well-intentioned, and then power corrupted him as it would anyone. You make this guy the ultimate arbiter of everyday behavior in American society, and that would get to anyone's head. So I don't know if he's a particularly pathological personality. But damn, he's smug.
He's not a scientist, I know that much. He's not following the science, because with all these flip-flops, it's clear. I mean, with what he said in March of 2020, he said there is no reason to be walking around with a mask. And he later said the reason he claimed this was so that hospitals and, you know, nurse practitioners, doctors could get their hands on masks. But what was the point of that? So that they could protect themselves? And so he was actively misleading the public to not buy masks just to get them for his people? It shows you the impetus of him. You know, he purposely misled the public into thinking there was no need to wear any masks. And he even says, what does he say? When you're in the middle of an outbreak, wearing a mask might make people feel a little bit better, and might even block a droplet, but is not providing the perfect protection that people think it is. I think that's the right view he had on this whole thing. But go ahead.
I mean, that's the epitome of thinking the people are too stupid to make up their own minds.
Yeah, it's so incredible. It's so incredible because there was actually something that somebody brought up. I forgot who I was watching, but it was about the AIDS epidemic back in the 80s and 90s, and this is where Fauci got big, and he actively he pushed for a vaccine that's still not developed today, and he was actively trying to suppress information and about treatments for AIDS and HIV, which caused the most people to live out healthy lives with that disease. And he was actually pushing for something that we still don't have today. So he is the cause of I don't know how many, but thousands of people dying. Not just back then, but today now. Because if he would have just told people, yeah, if you can get your hands on a mask, just wear anything over your face, maybe we can decrease the rates a little bit. Which I don't think it can do much because I think you have to have a full range of aseptic technique on your side. If you actually want to fight something and not get something like COVID, which is a very virulent disease, he should have been saying that. But no, he's just a puppet of whatever they want him to say, and it's very clear in this. Like, so March 2020, he says, don't wear a mask. And that was because he wanted to get masks for the medical people. And then he said, wear a mask. And then he even came out and said, let's wear 2 masks. And then now, after the CDC comes out and says, oh, we don't need to wear masks based on no new data, he says, oh, okay, maybe it's not, maybe you don't need to wear a mask. It's just, it's insane. You can see exactly where this guy is coming from. He's just a puppet for whatever they want him to say. And I think he's actively lying. And we'll move on to the next story because it's about the goddamn fucking, the lab hypothesis. Because he told National Geographic last year, so this is the title of the article, Fauci, no scientific evidence that coronavirus was made in a Chinese lab. And he says, if you look at the evolution of the virus in bats and what's out there now, the scientific evidence is very, very strongly leaning toward this could not have been artificially or deliberately manipulated. Everything about the stepwise evolution over time strongly indicates that this virus evolved in nature and then jumped to species. And just 2 weeks ago, let's fucking see what this goddamn duplicitous motherfucker said. Okay, let's get this loaded up. Fauci says he's not convinced COVID-19 developed naturally, calls for further investigation. So he says, specifically, I am not convinced about that. He added, I think we should continue to investigate what went on in China until we continue to find out to the best of our ability what happened. He continued, certainly the people who investigated it say that this was likely the emergence from an animal reservoir that then infected individuals, but it could have been something else, and we needed to find that out. So, that's the reason why I said I'm perfectly in favor of any investigation that looks into the origin of the virus. Then why didn't you say that when the fucking data was out then? Because this isn't from any new data. This data was out at the end of 2019. These people that worked in the lab, they got sick with this shit. That evidence was out in 2019. And now you're just coming out with this after the fact Trump is gone? That's the only reason he's saying that, in my opinion. They're trying to get out ahead of this because they don't want to look like fucking liars. The liars that they fucking are. And they're coming, or he's coming out now and saying that, yeah, there could be evidence that it is. Even though you see, National Geographic, fucking a year ago, no scientific evidence that coronavirus was made in a Chinese lab. He's so duplicitous. He's the most deceitful motherfucker. Nobody should be listening to this guy. He's such a liar. He's such a fucking liar.
I mean, changing your mind as a scientist is one thing. This is not a
This is not,
changing
no,
with new
no,
information.
No.
This is somebody who's changing based on what they think the public can take.
Exactly.
He said December 24th in the New York Times, he adjusted the threshold for herd immunity upwards based on what he thought the public would accept. This is, I mean, the world's unfair. There's a lot of these bureaucrats, and they never face any repercussions.
No.
And Fauci he's a 78-year-old man, and he's going to retire with honors and live in a big house in Nantucket for the rest of his life. But
addition to that, he's being held up by all these fucking Zoomers as a god, as a fucking herald of truth. When it's so clear, if you just do a little ounce of research, the lies this fucker has put out, and the people
I don't understand how anyone could like him. Like, I don't understand how anyone could find him appealing. I guess they see him as a bit of a Bill Nye kind of figure, but he's an ugly little mole man. He's not charismatic. He's smug. I know Andrew Yang. I fault myself for falling for Andrew Yang's bullshit, called him America's uncle, which is disturbingly paternalistic.
Yeah.
But how does anyone like this guy? Where does this cult come from?
It's people who are being deceived by the media, and people who don't pay attention. It's people who just accept whatever they say, and just because they're on their side. I mean, if I was a lefty, like, of course I'd probably have different opinions on stuff, but I would want to at least know the truth of this stuff, you know. And
Yeah.
people just eat this crap up because they're not paying attention. They don't know what's going on. They can't see clearly. It's like, that's all you gotta do is pull up two fucking things and see. He's a liar. He's a fucking liar. Because this evidence was out in 2019. You can Google search it right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's so frustrating. It's so fucking frustrating. He's such a liar,
Yeah, it is.
and people can't see it. It makes me mad. Because people who are actually scientific people, like myself, who actually want to find the truth, are being completely fucking, what's the word? Taken, like, people like Fauci are being taken such more seriously than people like me that are actually looking for the truth, just based on political opinion. If you're not of the orthodoxy, then they won't fucking listen to you. And that's all it's about.
Yeah.
But anyways, I've talked enough about COVID. We're gonna get to the last link in here. It's kind of scary, to be honest. So it just kind of wraps this whole thing up. So, breaking: Facebook whistleblowers expose leaked internal documents detailing new effort to secretly censor vaccine concerns on a global scale. So, two Facebook people, they came out as whistleblowers, basically, with a shocking revelation, and said, basically, that Facebook was censoring speech directly on the vaccine, and they were even censoring truthful things. And this is a really long article that they put together, a big investigation they put together. Basically, all says that they were categorizing statements based on vaccine and putting them in sections of their, or categories of their classification, saying what should be actively removed, what accounts need to be taken down, what things can be left up but actively suppressed by the algorithm. It's a big thing because it's kind of a lot to get into, but I just wanted to go to the last thing that they put out here. So Facebook describes what it classifies as shocking stories in regards to vaccines, and this is the stuff that they're going to actively suppress or either take down, suppress, or throttle the algorithm. So basically, a shocking story they consider potentially or actually true events or facts that can raise safety concerns indicated by sharing or following either without context or with hyperbolic terms. So they're censoring true things, true facts, just based on their beliefs about this bullshit. And if that doesn't scare you, I don't know what does. Because they're using every inch of power they have to shut down people for saying the truth. And I think
we've all seen it.
Yeah,
we've all seen it on Facebook.
Yeah, especially people on the conservative side, the libertarian side. We get it all the time, and I think some leftists are just waking up to some of this stuff. That they're eventually going to come for you too. Doesn't matter what you think. If you're out of the orthodoxy on one idea, they will come for you too, and it's going to come a lot faster than you think it is.
Yeah, I think it's an assault to the notion of free speech, because with free speech, it's not just the First Amendment; it's also the notion that people can think rationally, and people, if they're given the information to make up their own mind, will be able to sort the truth from a lie.
Mm-hmm.
The marketplace of ideas. And I don't think these entities believe in the marketplace of ideas, because in 2016 it rendered an outcome that they did not like.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that these people, they believe that the people are stupid. They think that people need to be shepherded to the truth. And regardless of what happens with the First Amendment, that's a violation of the liberal, small L liberal notion. All of the stuff John Stuart Mill wrote about, all of the reasoning that undergirds the value of free speech, seeing people as irrational. This is what they're doing now, is going back on the notion of human rationality. They see people as irrational, easily misled, in need of a patron to show them the way to think correctly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just sad that more people don't I don't know, aren't aware to this simple fact that they're lying to us, and they're deceitful, they're duplicitous. They don't care what they say as long as it forwards their narrative, forwards their agenda. It gets them more power. That's all they care about. That's all they care about is power. They don't care about any of these ideologies. They'll come out and say they want police reform, but I think they just want the power to have the police on their side. That's all it's about. That's just a small example of it. I don't know. That's how I'm gonna wrap it up with this. I just think that, I don't know, people need to wake up to the fact that the media is lying to you. And right now, I think most of it's leftist media, liberal media. Of course, I think conservative media, they're putting out their own narratives, but they don't have any power. They don't have the vast arms of fucking the power of government that the left and the liberals do. Even when Trump was in office with both of the houses of Congress, he still didn't have most of the power. You can see they were actively trying to get rid of him every turn they had. He didn't have control over most of his federal agencies. They were still doing all the bullshit they're doing now based on leftist ideology. Pushing all this critical race theory, critical fucking everything theory. It's just...
There was that bullshit op-ed about the resistance inside the Trump administration by that anonymous bureaucrat.
Yeah, I remember that.
So, the deep state stuff, whatever you want to call it, that's pretty on the record. The large part of Trump's bureaucracy was trying to undermine him. That's clear. That's indubitable.
Yeah, and the only reason they picked it apart, well, they didn't even pick it apart. They think it's not real because they hear deep state and they think that's a conservative conspiracy theory. When it's not anything crazy to think about. It's just officials that are in these federal agencies like the FDA, EPA, CDC. They're all run by these people who have leftist agendas, and you can't just get rid of them. Like it's hard to get rid of these people. Even if you get rid of the top, the agencies themselves are still full of these people because these are directly the people that are going into work like that. You don't see most of the conservative people. They don't go into government work. They make work for themselves. Most of them go and create industry. They create profit, which has its own problems. But they're not the ones that are going into these government power industries. The people you have going in there are people who want to take advantage of that power explicitly. And the people right now who have that power are the leftist liberals, progressives, whatever you want to call them. They have all the power right now, and we really need to be looking out for it. Basically, I don't know. Is there anything you wanted to conclude on, Jason?
Probably. I think we hit all the main points. Although I probably would want to re-emphasize the fact that this all dates back to the colleges.
It really does. Yeah,
and the reason that there's been such an institutional shift in the last decade is because of the new generation of college grads.
Yeah, so I just would want to know what the left would think if instead they had their way and had 95% or whatever the number is of college professors and people. What if it was, on the other side? What if there were 95% of their professors and consultants and reporters were conservatives? They wouldn't fucking like it, and people in the middle wouldn't like it either. So that's all I'm trying to get out here is that they have most of the power and they're lying to you and they're trying to forward their own agenda. They don't care about the truth. They care about power. And that's all it really is. But anyways, I hope you guys learned some stuff on this show. I know I sure did going through all these links. Every show just makes me frustrated reading all this stuff. But anyways, our next episode is going to be in a couple weeks. I think we're going to be doing the next one on woke policy and woke agendas and all of that critical theory whatnot. I'm going to try to have somebody on that actually believes in all of that so that we can have somebody that actually believes in it to give their reason why they think all that stuff is beneficial or how it will lead to a better society. So anyways, I think that's going to be the next episode, so I hope we'll see you then. Hope everybody has a good rest of the day, and stay spicy out there.